Hey folks, I got another Baldur's Gate 3 tier list for you. In this one, we are ranking every weapon action available in the game. If you don't know, weapon actions are not in tabletop, they are all designed by Larian. You can think of them like a Battle Master maneuver that is tied to the weapon you are using. Kind of a neat way to spice up your weapon selection. A quick note about the tiers I use before we get into it. S tier designates a weapon that is both highly impactful and consistently useful. And these are the two criteria that I use in all of my tier lists: impact and consistency, S tier designating the highest in both criteria. A tier is one that is either consistently a step below S tier in impact, or one that can be just as impactful, but only in certain situations. Likewise, B tier is for inconsistently good weapon actions or just consistently average. C tier are those weapon actions that are technically not useless, but still so unimpactful they are not really going to make a big difference to your runs. Finally, RP tier stands for roleplay tier. These are weapon actions that are useless, and the only reason to use them are for roleplay reasons, which of course I have to say are completely valid, but just not what I'm talking about in this video. Also, we should say that all of the weapon actions we will be discussing are once per short rest use. Many of them require a saving throw, and in those situations the saving throw is 10 plus your strength or dex modifier, whichever is higher, plus your proficiency bonus if you are proficient. Technically there is one exception to this, which is Backbreaker, the first weapon action we will discuss. Backbreaker is 8 plus your ability modifiers plus proficiency bonus, so 2 less DC than the others. I'm sure this is just a bug that will be fixed on full release. Alright, let's dive into the list. First is the weapon action Backbreaker. Backbreaker is an exclusive action to the Warhammer. With this, you make an attack as an action. If it hits, it deals damage as if your weapon was 1d4. Also, if it hits, enemies must make a strength saving throw, or be knocked prone for 2 turns, but not really 2 turns because you can always spend half of your movement to stand back up. That is Backbreaker. I don't like Backbreaker that much. First of all, it's a 2-hit ability. This is a term I'll use often. 2-hit is something where you need first to hit the attack, and then you need to hit because the enemy fails a saving throw to get the full effect. A 2-hit ability is always unreliable. It's just better to have to hit once rather than have to hit twice. And prone is a mediocre status condition because enemies can just expend their movement to stand back up. It's not proccing an attack of opportunity. That means you can think of prone as effectively having enemies movement, which isn't terrible, but it's also not great, especially for a 2-hit ability. I give this a B tier ranking, but it's a low B tier for sure. Next up is Brace. This allows you to spend 6 meters of your movement for a one-time ability to roll your weapon damage dice twice and take the highest. You can see here. Braced. It adds about 1.65 damage-ish to your weapon damage, which is really low. You can use this once per short rest. So if you think of it that way, it is quite terrible. But probably the better way to think about it is not as increasing your damage, but making your average damage much more likely. Your chances of rolling around your average damage or higher with Brace greatly increases than if you're just rolling once. So it is a more reliable way to do your average damage rather than a straight damage boost. And if you think of it that way, I would rank it a B tier. My thanks to the Reddit user Waffle Radio for pointing this out to me. Oh, and I forgot, you can use Brace on glaives, pikes, heavy crossbows, or longbows. That brings us to Cleave next. Cleave is a weapon action you can get on battle axes, great axes, great swords, and halberds. In this case, I'm using a great axe. What it does is it allows you to attack in an area of effect. You can see here, in this case, I'll be able to hit both Astarion and Gale, even though they're standing far apart. I believe the maximum you can get in this area of effect is 3 targets. And when you make the attack, you end up making an individual attack roll on everybody in that area of effect, all enemies in that area of effect. And if you hit them, it deals damage as normal, except that it uses half of your damage dice. So in the case of you hitting 2 targets, you would kind of be getting full damage because it's half damage on each. Or at least that's how it seems to work. In fact, it's only half of your damage dice. Any flat bonuses are added as normal, except for your strength bonus. So it's really confusing. But if you get flat bonuses from things like Barbarian Rage or Great Weapon Master Feat, it adds those to each target. But your weapon damage dice, any extra damage dice, like say from poison or dipping, those are halved, and also your strength modifier is halved and rounded either up or down, I can't remember. But you get the gist. Not a great ability unless you are a build that gets a lot of flat damage, like a Barbarian with Great Weapon Master. In that case, each target you hit in that AoE is taking the full 12 damage you would get, the plus 10 from Great Weapon Master, the plus 2 from Barbarian Rage. So on some builds, Cleave can be really good. On most builds, it is extremely mediocre. I give it a B tier ranking. Next up is Concussive Smash. This weapon action is a 2-hit weapon action, so you're going to make an attack. If that hits, the target must make a Constitution saving throw. On a failed saving throw, they are dazed for 2 turns. Dazed is a new status effect that Lacerate has added. A dazed target has disadvantage on Wisdom saving throws, cannot take reactions, and loses their Dex bonus to AC. And remember, that is for 2 turns. Now, as a 2-hit weapon action attack, that's a big negative. But Dazed is so good as a status condition, I have to give Concussive Smash an S tier. If they fail that Constitution saving throw, they're getting, first of all, disadvantage on Wisdom saves, which some of the most debilitating crowd control abilities target your Wisdom saving throw. Spells like Tasha's Hideous Laughter or Hold Person, and that would be enough to make it amazing. But on top of that, it removes reactions and enemies lose their Dex bonus to their armor class. Just so good. Concussive Smash is a staple in all of my runs, and that's because it's also available on so many weapons. You can get Concussive Smash on most bludgeoning weapons. You get it on clubs, great clubs, light hammers, maces, torches, mauls, morning stars, war picks, and war hammers. Amazing S tier ability easily, but even among the S tier abilities, I would say this is the weakest, so keep listening. Next up is Crippling Strike. Crippling Strike is a 2-hit single target attack. In the first hit, when you deal damage, you deal damage as if your weapon damage dice is a 1die4. If that hits, your target makes a Constitution saving throw or become crippled. A crippled target has a movement of 0 and has disadvantage on Dex saves. Both of these are interesting. Bringing a target's movement to 0 is actually a good way to make the prone condition stick, because prone, of course, you can spend half of your movement to stand back up. If you have no movement, though, you have no movement to spend. Disadvantage on Dex saves is alright. There's a lot of damage spells that target Dex. A lot of them aren't really in the game right now. Once we hit level 6 and we get Fireball, that is the big one that targets Dex. So for now, not the best saving throw to impose disadvantage on, but certainly you can use it. Altogether, it's kind of a niche effect. It's a 2-hit attack. I give it a B tier. Moving on, next is Flourish. Flourish is a weapon attack available on rapiers, scimitars, and short sword, so the big 3 finesse weapons. Flourish functions a lot like a control spell. It's not 2-hit. Enemies have to make a single Dex saving throw or be knocked off balance. When a target is off balance, they have disadvantage on strength saves, and the next attack against them has advantage. It's that next attack against them have advantage is the big one. Most of the time, since Flourish is cast on a bonus action, you use this to set up sneak attacks with your rogue. That's the primary use, and when you use it for that, it's okay. I give it a B tier. Now we are on to Hamstring Shot. This is a weapon action available on any kind of bow. Size doesn't matter on your bow. It can be long, short, you still get Hamstring Shot. This is a ranged 2-hit attack that deals damage as normal, and if it hits, the target must make a con save or become hamstrung. The hamstrung condition just reduces your movement by half, so it's kind of like a kiting tool. Again, just fine, you know? It's dealing damage as normal, so it's technically better than a normal attack. You should definitely use it once per short rest. But reducing movement by half is not really a game changer, so you guessed it, it's another B tier. Alright, this next one is absolutely insane, and I feel like no one really knows about how good it is. It is the weapon action Heartstopper, and it is a exclusive to the Morningstar weapon, which isn't used a lot. There aren't any unique Morningstars in the game, and it's just kind of a random one-handed weapon that no one seems to use, but it's worth using. A +1 Morningstar that you can buy from a shop is one of the best weapons in the game, and it's because of the weapon actions it gets. One of them being Heartstopper, the other one being Concussive Smash. But we're talking about Heartstopper right now. So, Heartstopper is a single target attack that takes your action. It's a 2-hit attack. If you hit the first one on an attack roll, it deals damage as normal, except it assumes your damage dice is a 1d4, so slightly reduced damage. And then the target must make a Constitution saving throw, which sadly Gale made in this example. But if they fail it, they get the status condition Chest Trauma. The status condition Chest Trauma is another one added by Larian. A target with chest trauma has disadvantage on Constitution saving throws, which is decent. There are some good spells that target Constitution, but here's the big one. They lose the ability to take actions. That's right, no standard actions for 2 turns. How insane is that? You're canceling 2 actions with this attack. So sure, it might not land that often because it's a 2-hit attack, but when it lands, it is so impactful. Not enough people are talking about how insane Heartstopper is. So again, with Morningstars, you're getting Heartstopper, canceling turns that way. You're getting Concussive Smash, which applies Dazed. Another fantastic status condition that we've talked about and we'll talk about again. Heartstopper is insane. S tier easily. It might be the best weapon action in the game. Alright, now we've got Lacerate. I think it's the most common weapon action. Probably between Lacerate and Concussive Smash. Lacerate's available on battle axes, cleavers, hand axes, sickles, glaives, great axes, great swords, halberds, longswords, and scimitars. So pretty much everything. Almost anything that does slash and damage has Lacerate. So what does it actually do? Well, it's a single target attack that takes your action. It's a 2-hit attack. As you can see, I missed, but if I hit on an attack roll, I deal damage as normal. But then the target must also make a Constitution saving throw or get the bleed condition for 2 turns. Bleed condition is actually pretty decent. It gives you disadvantage on Constitution saving throws, and at the start of your turn, while you have it, you take 2 damage. The extra damage is fine, not great. You're getting 4 damage out of the deal, nothing to write home about. The big thing is disadvantage on Constitution saving throws. There are some conditions that target Constitution that are really strong. One of them we just talked about. It's chest trauma from the Heartstopper weapon action. But there's also some damage spells like Thunderwave, Shatter, Moonbeam. You get the idea. Use it to apply disadvantage on Constitution saving throws, and maybe to get a little bit of extra damage on your attack. I give it a B tier, but it's probably one of the better B tiers in the list. Next we got Mobile Shot, which is a hand crossbow exclusive. So I'll be switching to Asterion here. He's equipped with my hand crossbows. Here it is, and you can see it is grayed out. That's because you can only take this action if you have dashed or disengaged this turn. So if we switch over to turn-based mode, and I get Asterion to dash, now Mobile Shot is available. It is just a normal ranged attack, which you can make on a bonus action. It's just if you dash, then you can make your standard attack with your bonus action. Now, right now in the game, this is completely useless because, like I said, it's a hand crossbow exclusive, and hand crossbows are already a bow that you can dual wield. I can attack with them on a bonus action anyways. So, as is, this is RP tier for sure. There's just no use for it. I don't think there is even a role-playing use for it. It's just a complete failure of design. But I can speculate about where they're going with it. The language suggests to me that this counts as a standard attack action. So if you have extra attacks from your class, maybe it will allow you to make those extra attacks with Mobile Shot, whereas you wouldn't be able to do that with an offhand attack. Also, offhand attacks shouldn't get the bonuses from your dexterity to damage, but right now they're bugged and they do. So maybe when we get extra attacks or that bug is fixed, Mobile Shot will start to become useful. But for now, it is completely RP tier. It's never worth doing. It's a complete waste of a weapon action. This next one is actually my favorite weapon action, not because it's best, but it's just really interesting to play around with. It is Piercing Strike, and also Piercing Shot. When it's available on ranged weapons, it's called Piercing Shot, and of course you can do the same thing at range. It's available on all crossbows as Piercing Shot. As Piercing Strike, it's available on pikes, rapiers, short swords, and tridents. This is a 2-hit weapon action. If you hit your attack, you deal damage as usual, and then the target must make a Constitution saving throw or receive the condition Gaping Wounds, and it's Gaping Wounds that is so interesting. I'm going to switch into turn-based mode to show you this. Now, Will has failed his saving throw, and he has Gaping Wounds. When a target has Gaping Wounds, any attack that hits them deals an extra 2 piercing damage. Now, 2 damage isn't a lot, but it can become a lot if you start stacking lots of attacks. And the best way to do this by far is with this spell right here, Scorching Ray. Scorching Ray makes 3 attacks in a single action. So we can see if I make target all 3 projectiles, 1 miss, but 2 of them procced Gaping Wounds for an extra 2 damage. My understanding is the most attacks you can make in a single round right now in early access is 5 if you use Scorching Ray, and then you make 2 bonus action attacks with an offhand weapon, or if you have the Helm of Grit. Now, that's a scenario that's never going to happen, but with Scorching Ray and an offhand weapon, you can reliably make 4 attacks in a round, potentially, if you hit all of them, adding 8 damage to your DPR. That's really good, and remember, Gaping Wounds last 2 rounds, so you hit it on a target, you focus them down. The only problem is that it's kind of overkill. There aren't really enemies in the game that have enough hit points to really utilize proccing, 7 or 8 attacks on them to get that tons of bonus damage from Gaping Wounds. Still though, this is a fairly significant damage boost if you can land it. I'm going to give it an A tier. Okay, this next one is probably the best weapon action in the game right now. It is Pummel Strike. Pummel Strike is a 2-hit attack. I'm going to shift into turn-based mode here. It's a 2-hit attack. If you land, the first hit, you deal your strength modifier and damage. No damage dice roll, so it's not great for damage. However, the target, if you land that attack, the target makes a Constitution save or becomes dazed. As you could see, Astarion made his Constitution save, so he's not dazed, but you know, that's just the weakness of 2-hit attacks. But what this gives you is so good, it is worth it, because it's potentially applying the daze condition. And we talked about the daze condition with Concussive Smash. It is so overloaded as a condition. What it does is, a dazed target has disadvantage on Wisdom saving throws. They cannot take reactions, and they lose their Dex modifier to Armor class. The best thing to use this for is to set up these crippling Wisdom saving throw spells like Tasha's Hideous Laughter or Hold Person. Imagine Astarion was dazed right now. He would have disadvantage on that saving throw. And then, here's the thing that really makes Pummel Strike so good. It's a bonus action. So, in this round, if my striker and my controller are moving on the same turn, which happens all the time, I could make a Pummel Strike, impose disadvantage on Wisdom saving throws, switch to Gale, land that Tasha's Hideous Laughter, switch back to my striker, and now my attack is automatically going to crit for insane damage. It's a kind of give and go technique. You set up the control spell, you land the control spell, which then sets up a crit on your striker. So good. It's the bonus action that really tips this over the edge. It's an S tier weapon action by far, and it's kind of difficult to get. It is only available on great swords, which I'm using, or on long swords. And having this on these weapons really sets them apart. It really makes you want to use them over some of their alternatives. And because great swords have Pummel Strike, great swords are just the best weapons in early access right now. Not to mention that you can get some fantastic great swords. Great swords like Everburn Blade or the Sword of Justice. These are great striking weapons, and they have Pummel Strike to set up Tasha's Hideous Laughter, Hold Person. Some of the best weapons in the game by far. But yep, Pummel Strike, S tier, hands down. Next up is the weapon action Prepare. Prepare is a Great Axe exclusive, and it's pretty good. It gives you a reason to use Great Axes. This doesn't cost an action slot, it just costs 6 meters of your movement speed. When you do that, for one round you get Prepare, which allows you to double your strength bonus on damage. And this is good for kind of the same reason that Piercing Strike / Shot is good, in that this small boost to damage can be multiplied in multiple ways. One way, of course, is to improve your strength with potions and just getting the highest strength you can on your character. And then the other way is to make multiple attacks with things like Frenzy Strike or the bonus action attack from Great Weapon Master. So we can see here, if we make an attack, it deals an extra 3 slashing damage because of my strength modifier, and it does that for the turn. But when I exit the turn mode, you can see I have lost Prepare. So Prepare is good. It's a small damage boost that you can increase very easily, and once you multiply it multiple times, it really starts to add a lot of damage to a round, allowing you to burst down a single target. Fantastic. A tier for sure. Next is Rush Attack. Rush Attack is a weapon action available on pretty much every polearm. So that's Spear, Glaive, Halberd, Pike, Trident, and also for some reason Longsword. Not sure why. Rush Attack takes your standard action, but it allows you to make an attack at 9 meters distance. When you do it, you rush over to the target that you attack, and you make an attack as normal, except if you hit, you deal damage as if your weapon damage dice was a 1d4, so slightly reduced damage. Also, if you hit, the target must make a strength save or be knocked off balance. We talked about off balance. An off balance target has disadvantage on strength saving throws, and the next attack against them has advantage. Not crazy. The big thing that rush attack is good for is the extra 9 meters of movement and still doing damage. This allows you to close on the targets you want. 9 meters is, for most characters, a full movement, and it's costing your action, not any of your actual movement. So it's a mobility tool. I really like it for that. I give it an A tier. Next up is Tenacity. Tenacity is interesting because it actually is a reaction weapon action. Uses your reaction, so to use it in this game right now, you have to go to your passives and toggle it on. Once it's toggled on, it will use your reaction when you miss an attack and deal your strength modifier in damage anyways. So we can, let's see. We'll give Gale mirror image here. Tenacity's toggled on, so when I make an attack against Gale, oh, I actually hit. Well, you get the idea. It will deal your strength modifier in damage if you miss at the cost of your reaction. If this was costing nothing, I would probably give it a B tier, but since it's costing an action, the damage is so low anyways. For me, it's a C tier. Maybe I'm not being fair. Really what you use it for is a guaranteed kill on a low health target, I guess. So maybe you can think of it as a B tier, but I like to use my reaction for other things like attacks of opportunity or riposte attacks, things like that. Anyways, if you do want to use it, it's available on Morning Stars and Great Clubs, which Great Clubs I almost never use, but Morning Stars are some of the best weapons in the game. So yeah, that's Tenacity, C tier. Alright, we're getting near the end now. We are at Topple. Topple is a quarterstaff exclusive. So I have a quarterstaff equipped on Gale right now. It takes an action, and it's actually a single hit attack. The target must make a, what is it? Dexterity saving throw or be knocked prone for 1 turn, and that's it. That's not good, but you can kind of use it as a semi-reliable way to escape. A prone target actually can't make attacks of opportunity against you technically. Attacks against a prone target have advantage. I think I gave it B tier in my written tier list. I'm fine sticking with that, I guess, but it's a low B tier. You could also consider it C tier. That's Topple. And the last weapon action is Weakening Strike. Weakening Strike is available on rapiers, warhammers, and pickaxes. It's a single target attack that takes your action. It's a 2-hit, so you make an attack roll. If the attack roll lands, it deals damage as if your weapon damage dice was a 1d4, and then the target must make a strength saving throw or receive the weak grip condition for 2 turns. Weak grip is another Larian added condition. A target with weak grip has disadvantage on attack rolls and strength saving throws. Attack rolls is nice, but there's a lot of ways to impose disadvantage on attack rolls. Strength saves, not a lot of spells in the game right now. Target, strength, basically it's entangling conditions like the spell Entangle or Ensnaring Strike from Rangers. That is not really game-changing spells. It's not a great saving throw to impose disadvantage on, so altogether, Weakening Strike is B tier in my book. And that's all of the weapon actions. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you will like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I want to take a second at the very end now to thank my generous supporters on Patreon. the guys who keep the lights on. Jason, my newest supporter, thank you. And to my returning supporters, Aurelian, Jeff, Ghost Coast, Marchitar, Soul Servant, and of course the guy who started it all, CA Castaway. Thank you, gentlemen. I won't let you down.